We're joined now by Rushanara Ali, a Labour MP on the Treasury Select Committee, Andrew Murison, a Conservative MP and doctor who's been participating in the vaccination drive, and Cameron Leslie. Now, he's the co-founder of Fabric nightclub in London. You'll know, of course, that nightclubs are one of those businesses now being pushed back in their opening by another 4 weeks. Welcome to you all. Rushanara, can I just start with you? I guess there was no choice really on this, was there? That we were always told it was about data, not dates, and we got what we all expected.
Well, there was a choice, which is that the government could have put in the restrictions in the airports, controlled our borders to prevent the Delta variant getting out of control, getting into the country and then out of control, and now doubling every 10 days in our country. Many of us warned the government weeks ahead of this variant getting in to put in the restrictions, and the government's been too slow to act in terms of controlling our borders. That's the first thing. If the government had done that, we may not have been in this, almost certainly wouldn't have been in this position where we had to extend the date for opening everything up. And secondly, I think once we got to that point, of course, it is impossible for any party, any sensible party in opposition, to not support extending that restriction and following the evidence.
So you would support the Prime Minister tonight. What would you say to his own backbenchers who don't agree?
Well, I think that the reason why everyone, whichever side of the political spectrum they're in, are frustrated is because what we've seen is a failure to get a grip, and we've seen the government failing to learn the lessons, heeding the warnings that come from different quarters, both from experts as well as from opposition parties like mine, about controlling the borders, controlling the variants.
Let's pick up with Dr. Murison, who comes at this from both, I guess, a political and a medical perspective. There are some pretty depressed people in your party tonight, Dr. Murison. Would you say the majority still side with the PM's decision, though?
Well, good evening, Emily. Yes, of course, we're all disappointed by this. Of course we are. The majority of my parliamentary colleagues will be supportive of the government. They may not like it. I think they see the logic of it. You're right to suggest it is all about data. And my guess is the principal issue here is around the failure to establish or refute a link between the incidence of COVID in the population and serious hospital admissions and deaths. And I think it's really the government wanting to make sure that it has that data. That data, I suspect, is going to emerge in the coming days. And I was reassured to hear that there'd be a review point at 2 weeks. And I think at that point, we might be a little bit clearer about the way ahead.
I can see Cameron shaking his head. Just before I come to you, Cameron, you have colleagues, Andrew Murison, like Charles Walker, who say, look, if we can't get our act together in the summer, then it's pointing towards another round of lockdowns come the winter months, come autumn. Do you think that we're heading for autumn lockdowns as well now?
I'm worried about that possibility, that's for sure, because if we hit the revised date of the 19th of July, and we're not looking as if we're coming out of this, that is to say, step 4, we have to ask a question, if not now, then when? And if it goes on, we're looking at the autumn and the winter, and we know that respiratory viruses like the autumn and winter months, and there's likely to be an uptick in the instance of those conditions then. And we can then look forward to the spring. It could be spring before we're out of this step 4. So I'm reassured to hear that the Prime Minister regards the 19th of July as, in his words, the terminus date. I think that's a very important, very significant thing for him to have said today. Let
me pick up with Cameron Leslie. What were your Fabric plans for the coming weeks? What were you doing? What were you putting in place? What's happening now?
Well, we were putting in place our reopening, having last opened on March the 14th last year. And we were due to open a week on Friday, the 25th, and we had events planned, up to 4 events each weekend then going forward. And as you can imagine, for a venue like ours, which has been shuttered since then, that was going to be an incredibly important point for us to get up and get some momentum going and get our business re-going.
What do you do, in terms of the money? How much money are you losing from that, and what will you do with the bands or with the gigs that you've booked?
Well, the complication around the money is that, a venue like ours takes months to prepare to open. You don't just sort of switch on, with a week in advance. You've got the events to curate. You've got acts that are incredibly difficult to get diary opportunities for, particularly as everybody's reopening at a similar time. So curating the right events, but in the back end, you've got a team that effectively was, a company that was completely dismantled last year. We had no end date in sight. So we had to let go of close to 130 very skilled staff. Many of them had been with us a very long time. To put that kind of team back together, to train them to be able to deliver something like close to 2 Glastonburys every year in central London under the sort of very strict and challenging licensing regime that a venue like ours has to respond to, is incredibly difficult to get a team like that fully trained up and ready to go, within 10 days. And now we've got this complete team on standby. You can't just put it in sleep mode. You've got this full infrastructure getting ready. Our energy capacity has had to go up nearly 5-fold to be able to reach this point next Friday. And all of these things are now having to be put on a potential standby for supposedly 2 weeks, but let's just say it's 4 weeks' time. I mean, that's just burning incredible costs that we and other venues like us just cannot afford to be doing at this particular time.
Rushanara, how should businesses like Cameron's be compensated if they're missing peak earning weeks and they've put all that preparation in? What would Labour say in terms of a payout?
Businesses need to be given the support. The hospitality sector alone is at risk of losing about 3 billion. People will be made redundant.
That support?
Well, the government needs to extend the support package. You've already heard about the fact that business rates are not. That companies are going to have to pay that. They're going to have to pay more towards furloughing costs and staff being rehired to be able to open for the.
So Labour wouldn't start the tapering at all this month, then, at the end of this month?
Personally, I think that the government shouldn't be introducing the tapering off, because if you're extending the restrictions by another month, where are companies meant to find the money? Hospitality, tourism, entertainment, all of those sectors have already been hit very hard, and this is going to mean more fixed costs that they can't afford to pay. The government needs to step in and provide that support. The mistake they made in the past is these delays, which then cost jobs, and the same's going to happen again.
It seems we've got a very firm no from your Chancellor, Rishi Sunak. Do you think that's going to change? Do you think it should change?
Well, I think Rishi has won laurels from across the world, actually, for the extraordinary support he has given in this country. It has been designed well. It's been one of the most generous. Now, look, I really do sympathise with people who are in a parlous state because of their business at the moment. I really do. If I had a criticism at the moment with what we've heard today, it would be that the government perhaps might have followed its own evidence that's emerging from the pilots it's been holding of mass gatherings, of big events, which suggests that transmission of COVID in those situations is modest. And I wish it had shown just perhaps a little bit of ankle in terms of allowing some of those hospitality venues to open up. And I think that would have been a big shot in the arm. But let's remember, this is the fourth of 4 steps. And the lifting of the previous restrictions has done a power of good to the economy. And the British economy at the moment is in a far better state than many of us had dared wish for just a very few months ago.
Cameron, Fabric's a big name. You'll probably weather this, deeply painful as it will be. Do you know other businesses that you don't think will get through this? I mean, are there some friends or colleagues that are kind of coming to the end of their tether now?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's fairly well known in our industry, and certainly on a personal level, quite a few had reached out in the last few days as this sort of this leak had come out, and were really, really stressed about how they were going to be able to manage this. And, I had no magic answers for them because, while I think we will be able to weather this, there'll be plenty of others that won't be in the same position that we will, and have not had some of the support that perhaps us and a very few select of our peers have been able to deem to be cultural institutions. Whereas as a sector, I think by and large, most of our peers have just been left to fend for themselves.
Andrew, can I just come back to where this all leads is the speed of vaccination over the next 4 weeks. Now, as a practitioner, I mean, you're presumably putting, jabs and arms as the day job. Are we going to get there in 4 weeks? Are we going to get to a place where enough people have had that second jab?
I'm not quite sure what enough means, because we'll never vaccinate the whole of the population. Not everybody will accept a vaccine, though I wish they would. I think we're going to be considerably further along the road by the 19th of July, that's for sure. Every day that goes by, we have more and more people being vaccinated, and that means there's going to be nowhere left, I hope, for this virus to go. I'm really heartened by the data that's coming out around the efficacy of the second jab in particular against the Delta variant. But we've got to prepare, Emily, for the next one, because coronavirus isn't going to go away, and we need to have a discussion about risk. I was very pleased that the Chief Medical Officer, Chris Whitty, appeared to be starting that conversation a few days ago, because I'm sorry to say it will continue to be a feature of our lives and continue very, very sadly to kill people. But the vaccination programme is our way out of this, and it's been massively successful in this country. I pay tribute to everybody involved.
OK, thank you very much. Thanks to all of you for joining us. Thank you.